Hey, welcome to another installment of the Black Sports Insiders. I'm Kyle T. Mosley here with Miss Kim Davis. How you doing, Kim?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. And we have Mr. Ray Rogers. What's going on, Ray?
What's happening, y'all? Excited about tonight.
And I thought I would need to check on this young lady this weekend, see how she was doing. How you doing, Keisha?
Now, keep in mind, his team lost too. But he
We were
was
expected to lose, but we were expected to lose.
He want to talk about my team like his team to take an L as well.
No, see, I was caring about you. I wanted to check on you, see how you were doing, but I was giving you some time.
Oh, I was over it Saturday night. I was okay.
Yeah, that was a tough loss for the Southern Jaguars in the Boombox Classic, but also it was a tough loss because they lost their quarterback. Keisha, any updates on TSET?
No, I'm not really sure because if you watch, T-Set got hurt as well as Biden. So Biden went in after T-Set got hurt, but I'm not really sure what the status is. I'll have to check, but hopefully, he's good to go and the injuries are okay because we do go into SWAC play this weekend. So,
Wow. Okay. Well, hopefully that is the case because you guys are having a conflict with Prairie View, right?
yeah, both our records look the same.
Oh my gosh. All right. So I will be at that game to cover it. Kim, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Busy NFL weekend, of course.
Wait,
Yeah.
hold on. Is that a Falcons helmet up there?
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
You see it.
I
You did
just-
that to antagonize me today. That's all.
It's all fun.
But
I don't
Kim,
get too emotional. Trust me.
I scored first, so it's early.
yeah, it's early. But I tell you one thing, those dirty birds, they always keep hope alive as well until they get their feathers plucked. So that's all I will say
Hey,
about
the
that.
Saints look good. I can't even talk no trash to you right now, but I like your tie though. Thanks for that.
That's
Well, I was trying to give you guys some vibes because I really do want you to defeat the Eagles because the Saints play the Eagles on next weekend. So we will see how that translates. But let's talk about the NFL. We had 15 black starting quarterbacks to open up the season. Now, Kim, we're down to 13 that will possibly open up. We lost one to injury. We lost another one now to some new developments in Carolina, where Bryce Young is no longer going to be the starting quarterback. That's going to be Andy Dalton, who previously was with the New Orleans Saints as well. Big Red, we would call him. Kim, in looking at what's happening, is this something that people should be concerned about, or is this the natural things to expect when you talked about the National Football League?
Well, obviously the Jordan Love is an injury, so that's that's in one category. And Bryce Young has struggled, and so when you don't perform, you lose your spot. And you got a new coach this year. They're trying to get some things going, and he's not looked great through the first 2 games of the season. And you just know sometimes coaches make a move to, whether it's temporary or not, to try to get you to maybe see some things you didn't see, or
Excuse me.
bless you. You don't want to lose the locker room because they've got to feel like that you as a coach, we are trying to win. We know we've got a young player. So there's a lot of factors. I just think it goes with the game, especially as poorly as the Carolina Panthers have played the last few seasons.
Yeah. It didn't help for the Saints to put the whooping on them in the season opener. And then to look at how, but, Bryce Young, he has talent. He has the ability. And I'm just concerned about right now, how does a young quarterback snap back from that? Hopefully he has the right support system to be able to help them. But Kim, also yesterday, you had firsthand look at 2 of the premier young black quarterbacks in the National Football League, with Caleb Williams visiting the Houston Texans and CJ Stroud. Talk about that game and the atmosphere in NRG.
Well, it was electric. It was a Sunday night primetime game. The roof was open, which is rare. I think it's been open only 4 times in the last 9 years. And one of the reasons it was open is because they got the damage during Hurricane Beryl. And so it was open last night. There was some talk about rain. That didn't happen, so that worked out. And let me first say this. I think it is unfair to other young quarterbacks for when they come into the league for people to ask the question. I mean, people, the experts, the pundits, is he going to have the kind of rookie season that CJ Stroud had? What CJ Stroud did in year one was pretty remarkable. And that's an unfair bar to set for other quarterbacks. I think Caleb Williams he's young. You can tell he's got talent. He has the physical ability. But that Texans defense was tough. And when you're getting the pressure up front like they did yesterday, especially by the time they got to the second half, I mean, he was pressured 36 times. He was sacked, 6 or 7 times. That's a lot for anybody, especially a rookie in game 2. So he will continue to grow and get better. It's welcome to the National Football League. And, CJ didn't have his best night, but he had a good enough night to win. And so if this is a roster that's trying to get far in the postseason, you got to win these games. The Texans were really, really good on defense. Their offense was okay. Again, it was good enough to win. But man, the Texans played a style of ball that you don't normally see them play. The word's undisciplined. They had 12 penalties for 115 yards. You don't win in the National Football League making those kind of mistakes. They turn the ball over inside the red zone on a 3-yard line. So you come away with no points. And so there were some mistakes they made, but when you can win on a Sunday in the National Football League, you do that. I think a lot of teams that we saw, and we could talk about them that are 0-2, like the Ravens, they're going to be better than that. I think it's early. I mean, look, Joe Burrow and the Bengals are 0-2. They should have won yesterday. I don't know what happened to Dallas. They just didn't have any defense. Maybe it was that second line. It was marching around outside the stadium.
It was the Hudak Nation that happened to Dallas, and it was Clint Kubiak's new offense and Derek Carr's resurgence as a quarterback in the National Football League. And it doesn't help to have Alvin Kamara. So that's what happened.
That is what happened. But here's what's really interesting, because that offense that they run with the Saints is one, that West Coast offense or some variation of it. And Dallas is going to face that offense 5 or 6 more times because it's really prevalent in the NFC. So they're going to have to figure it out. They struggled with it last year. They struggled with it against, because the Packers run a version of that offense. They struggled last year in postseason, and they continue to struggle on Sunday. So, it's week 2, and there's a lot that's going to look different by the time you get to maybe week 6. But that was a bad loss for the Cowboys yesterday.
It was a good win for the New Orleans Saints.
It's a great win for the New Orleans Saints. They beat up on people like they're trying to go someplace. Another team that's looking like they're trying to do some things is Minnesota. And so the coronation of the 49ers as the obvious choice to get back to the NFC Championship game. Now people are having to go, wait, pump the brakes. Maybe not. We got to pay attention to what they're doing in New Orleans. And let's keep our eyes on that Minnesota team. So it's early, right? It's early.
Another quarterback that's trying to get his career back on track, Sam Darnold. So that's good to see for him, as well as Jefferson just looked like Jefferson. But he did leave the game early. Ray, talk about what happened in Washington before we go to our guest.
Yeah, very quickly, Jaden Daniels is quickly winning over the fan base here in Washington. And he kind of did that earlier in preseason when he came to the stadium, a preseason game with a Doug Williams jersey on, which, of course, is ode to HBCUs all day.
That was smart.
Obviously, that was back in the glory days of that franchise. And we know the recent history, really the last basically 3 decades, hasn't been a whole lot of winning around here. And the last guy to really make this fan base excited was RG3. He's now giving those RG3 vibes here in Washington. Washington did not score a touchdown. I mentioned that to you, Kyle, before the game, but they have not turned the ball over, or at least Jaden hasn't yet. And that's been huge. They got a W against a team that is also struggling in the Giants, but still in your home opener with a brand new coach, new GM, that was huge for Washington. Jane Daniels has been the best player on the field so far for the Commanders. So big ups to him.
Yeah, definitely. Guys, we have a special guest that we will bring in. Her name is Miss Rasheeda Liberty. She owns Lady Lib Sports and Entertainment, and she's been very instrumental in having two of the more premier players in Black college over the past couple of years that she's represented, Davius Richard as well as Xavier Smith. And we will talk to her about how should a parent or a guardian go about selecting a sports agent. That's something that a lot of people kind of get caught up in how to really find somebody who's going to be for the best interest of the student athlete. And we're going to talk to her about that when we come back after these messages.
November is American Diabetes Month, but we're not here to celebrate it. Not when diabetes is gripping us and hurting us. At the American Diabetes Association, we're here to make a stand. Join us, add your passion, lift up your loved ones and those in need, and move us closer to a cure. Someday, we can celebrate. Until then, we fight.
Visit your local Acura dealer for attractive offers on a new vehicle.
See those people right there? Mm-hmm. When they get inside and find out this place doesn't serve food, they're gonna wish they had done this.
Facts.
Get one favorite like a Big Mac or Quarter Pounder with cheese and get another for just $1 right now at McDonald's.
This is how it starts with the 2023 McDonald's Change Leaders. 10 young Black visionaries who are starting something and changing everything. Find out what they're up to at mcdchangeleaders.com.
No charger?
It's a Mac. The battery lasts all day. See you next week.
Okay, we are back with the Black Sports Insiders, and we welcome to the program. How you doing, Rasheeda?
I'm doing well on this Monday night football night. Right.
Monday Night Football. Yeah, we have a lot of competition. Those busted guys from Atlanta called the Falcons are playing tonight against the Eagles. So, but anyway, I don't want to show too much bias there. But Rasheeda, I invited you to talk to me because I've had several parents that have come to me and approached me, say, "Hey, Kyle, how can we be able to get the right representation for our child?" And it's difficult for me to be able to say, go to this agent and this agent, but I know you have been highly successful over the past couple of years to be able to represent some of the top tier talent coming out of Black colleges. So I wanted you to kind of give people an idea of what to expect and what type of questions they should be asking when it comes to finding the right representation.
Mm-hmm. For sure. It is definitely challenging. One of the first things I will say is that you definitely want to get someone that you can establish a relationship with. An agent is more than just someone who is a voice at the table. An agent is someone that actually helps build relationship, not only with you, but your family, as well as the league. They have to be able to represent all of your needs, your desires, what your expectations are. They're your voice, they're your mouthpiece. And so in order to do that, they have to really know you. Many of our clients
know me very personally. They know that they can call at 2 a.m, 3 a.m. They can show up at my door at 6 a.m, and that there's a relationship there. That is very, very important when you're looking to seek representation. Now, many agents will come to the table with parents or the students and get on the phone and talk about what they've done for others. And I always say that's not necessarily the best approach. It's better to approach it from what you're willing to do for me. Because at the end of the day, I don't care who you have represented. I don't care what first rounds you represented, second round. I may not be that person. So what have you done for me? I would say that many agencies, big agencies, and there's no disrespect there, it's just what their priorities are, but they're going to represent your top 100 players. And those are the guys that are drafted day 1, day 2. When you start to get to day 3 and the later round players, you need people who have a history of somewhat being hustlers, salespeople on the ground, making sure you have the right marketing attached to you, making sure you have the resources poured into you. That means strength and conditioning, training, PR training, all of those things. If they're not going to give you those things to get you set up for success, or don't have a history of doing that, then they're really just people trying to come up with you. And sometimes you can be that. I know specifically with Xavier, it was a first time kind of breaking through with FAMU. It wasn't my first time representing HBCU players, but with FAMU, and he challenged me a little bit on what he wanted. His family told me what they expected, and we came together, and he basically said, I know you need me just as much as I need you. And that's how we formed that covenant, that we were going to have that agent relationship. Sometimes it happens like that. So I really would say it's a relationship-based business. It is also, do they have a history of having connections to the league? So a question sometimes I would say the more experienced locker rooms with draft picks, they'll come and they'll ask me right away, well, how many teams have you had negotiations with? And I can boldly say 25 of the 32 teams. That means something. That means I can pick up the phone and make something happen. I need to. So that's important. I'll let you ask some more questions. I can go on and on.
Yeah, I mean, you were doing great, but there was you talked about the relationship that Xavier challenged you about having with him, and the need that you have to have with him as well. But one parent asked me, she said, Kyle, I know there are agents that would go for, like you said, the top tier guys only, or if they come from a Power 4 conference or something to that nature, or even FCS, higher leagues or Division I, that doesn't include HBCU. But how do you work with an HBCU or a kid coming from a Black college who needs representation?
Yeah, so we do what we call an assessment. I'll tell you what we do in our agency. We start with, it's my commitment in Lady Live Sports and Entertainment to always represent an HBCU player every single year. And we've done that since our inception. We've had the last 2 offensive play MVPs for the HBCU Legacy Bowl, who both went on to Path to Draft, NFL Network, had Sports Illustrated articles. Like, we make things happen for them. But I think if you had to really narrow it down, there are a lot of players in HBCUs. There's a lot of players in P4s. Sometimes you're having 10 to 15,000 draftable players. So what it comes down to often is, if you have the talent, that's going to dictate the relationship. And what a lot of our young athletes believe is that I have excelled on this platform, so I can excel in the NFL. And I love what the young lady said right before I joined the call. Welcome to the NFL. The NFL is not for good college players. It's not for great college players. It's for exceptional players at the professional level. Because there, you're not meeting the guy that you played against at Norfolk State. Right. You're not meeting the guy at FAMU. You're not meeting the guy at Southern. You are meeting that P4 player that is coming day 1 and ready to take your head off. That's who you're meeting at the NFL, and that's who you're competing against. when you join the NFL, you are looking at what third string, second string guy can I knock off right away? If you can't do that and you haven't delivered that at no matter what school you go to, the HBCU level, it's going to be difficult to find representation because the representation does a deep scrub of a couple things.
Gotcha.
Character. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead. Kim, I know Kim had a question. Go ahead.
All right. First of all, thank you, Rasheeda. It's great to meet you, and it's great information. And I wonder what kinds of things, Kyle said, he had a player's mother ask him, and oftentimes the players don't really have advocates in their family. But what kinds of things should a young player be looking to do? I mean, you mentioned how they scrub, they look for everything. If you were advising someone who's not your client yet, who is hoping to be represented, what kinds of things should he or she be looking to make sure that they have in place so they're able to make a good decision and even to be attractive to an agency?
Yeah, let me give you 5 things real quick because I know you guys are limited in time. Strength and conditioning. Make sure you're hitting that weight room. Make sure you're eating properly. It's going to be very important because remember, the strength programs are very strong with your competition. Number 2, realize that the NFL is a much bigger stage. So you have to be the number 1 or number 2 captain guy for your position at your school. Number 3, understand that highlights don't please the NFL or any other professional league. They're going to look at nothing but the full game, the game that you did poorly on and the games in which you delivered well in. Lastly, or the 4th one I would say is professionalism. Make sure that there's no cussing. Make sure your social media is cleaned up. Make sure people have your full name on your social media because the NFL scout can't even find you because you're going by Little Ray Ray. We don't know who Little Ray Ray is. We need to know you need to tag your school because that's going to increase your following. You need to follow football, NFL teams, CFL teams, UFL teams, because that's going to change your algorithm to make sure that those scouts can find you. And lastly, I would say, understand that you're going to need representation. You're going to need representation before your last collegiate game. Now, when I say that, legally and systematically, you cannot sign with an agent. However, you need to kind of align on who your top agents that you would go after would be so that those people can get ready to represent you and are properly prepping you to make sure you get to a bowl, make sure you get a combine invite.
Let me ask you one quick follow-up because I know Ray wants to ask you something. You talked about PR and communications, and I work in the media space and do some of that training. Can you just talk about the importance of that? There's so many people now, especially because social media is so big, that don't really understand the value of what I call that third-party validation. But NFL teams feel like, or NBA teams, or pick a league, we're making such an investment, and we want to know a few things: that you're not going to embarrass us, right? That you can come and make a good representation of yourself. I mean, I remember the Giants used to have a questionnaire that they asked picks. It was 100 questions. Like, it sounds ridiculous, but they still do. So can you talk about how you navigate that and helping them understand the importance of that media piece?
Yeah. So the clients we serve, we automatically have them with PR and media training with our PR media team. And there's 7 individuals that work with them on how to remove ums, how to make sure your eyes don't shift when you're speaking, how to speak when you're being asked from the media, what to say, what not to say, how to not offer criticism, things like that. That is very important. But that social media presence is their only voice that they have to you, or your media days, or how you speak for your teams. So if you're in a blaming mode with your teams, if you're doing a lot of you know what I'm saying, it doesn't, you won't represent the brand of that NFL team well, and they already know that they have an issue with not putting you in front of the camera, no matter how good you are. There are some great NFL players that you never hear from because they don't speak well.
Well, let me stay in that vein. When you talk about the social media presence, ever since I was teaching high school and helping some kids, I was like, hey, you have to be able to make sure people understand who you are. They're going to go back to your profiles. They're going to look at what you have done. Has there been instances where the athlete did not get a chance to have a workout or a tryout or visit with a team because of their NFL profile?
We've had instances where the NFL team has kind of contacted us and asked where the priorities were. So are the priorities with his boys gang banging and throwing up gang signs in a brand new car? Matter of fact, where did the car come from? Because we checked with his school and he did not get that amount of funds. We see that he's got a certain towel color hanging out or bandana. What is that about? We know what it's about. The NFL knows. You know, and the young people feel like they're so smart, but they're so intense investigative teams that work on this stuff. And they also know about the Finstas, the fake accounts, because they're able to get how the accounts are linked and information from there. So it is a lot of, they will ask those questions of where the priorities lie by his social media. I can't tell that he loves football. And we want players who love football. Not necessarily the dancers, not the baby mama, not the strip club, and not their fancy cars and they sagging pants. And also utilization of drugs that are illegal in certain states.
Okay. All right, Ray, a question?
All right, I appreciate you letting me jump in here. So I wanted to follow up to something you said earlier, like you're not playing against Norfolk State anymore. You're not playing against this school. One of the most successful HBCU players in my lifetime is Antoine Bethea, outside of maybe Steve McNair. And what he told me was during that process, he was frustrated because he said he saw guys who came from Power 5 schools who were not as talented as his HBCU teammates, but because they went to HBCUs, they did not get the looks that these guys. He said some of my guys could definitely compete and probably excel, but they won't get the opportunity because these guys went to like a Michigan or Alabama. How do you help players navigate that process? Because it is unfair, but it's the reality of the world that we live in, unfortunately.
It is a reality. I've heard that before. I've heard that many times, not only from HBCU players, but I've heard it also from FCS players. Mm-hmm. And I've heard it from some P4 players that I represented. Like, yeah, he's a dog. He's just as good as anybody else on the team. It is true to a certain extent. It's all about reps and development and the talent that you were going against that allowed you to have those consistent reps. That's usually the gap. That's usually the gap. You know, O-linemen, in the NFL, you're dealing with O-linemen that are 6'5", 6'7", right? And HBCUs, you were a great D lineman, but that 6'5", 6'7" guy may handle you because you never experienced a rep. And so they never demonstrated it on film. So they can't prove that you can do it. So that's when we're like, hey, I at least want to let you get them in camp. But in order to get you to camp, I got to get you to train. In order to get you to train, I got to get you to, your training has to deliver on your pro day. If you run a 5.4, you can't tell me you can compete athletically with any NFL player. It's not true. You can't.
All right. Keisha.
Yes. So it's great to meet you. I want to go back to when you were talking about the family dynamic, because one of my close friends is an NFL agent, and one of the people he represents is Keon, and we know how much he is a character. But when it comes to the dynamic of representing, we know you got to go through the mama, the daddy, sometimes the church, everybody when you're representing those athletes. How do you approach that, especially when you have somebody that's coming from like a smaller city, a smaller place, like not like in Atlanta, but you have like a smaller city that might be within that city? How do you approach, I'm gonna say somebody that's coming from a town, how do you approach those athletes?
I don't usually look, to be honest, I don't target them from necessarily where they're from. I target them based on their talent. And if they say, the rest of the family needs to be on the call, we like to educate the whole family. And actually, before the draft, I often have a call with just the family because I want them to relieve that player of the pressure that is going to be on them during those next, 3 or 4 weeks, right? Those next couple of weeks. And it's educating them through the process. I think the families are easier to work with and get to when you're truthful with them. Cool. It's hard sometimes to let a mama know, like, your son has had every opportunity. I've got him to 2 or 3 bowl games. He's seen 2 or 3 teams. He's went to a local day. He's went to the UFL. He's went to the CFL. And now his career is done. It's done. We got him the opportunities. He didn't show up for the opportunity, or he wasn't able to deliver on the opportunity. And that is a hard pill to swallow when you're dealing with a mom who's been sitting in the stands since that young man has been 5 years old, all the way until his college career, where he was a star on the billboard, and now he's at home watching the NFL. That is really hard. But yes, I start with the player skill first, but I will work the family in to make sure that they're educated on the process and answer all of their questions. So it usually works.
Okay. Rasheeda, let me ask you this. Do you have a few more minutes to stay with us? We have to go to commercial and we will be right back.
Yeah, sure.
All right. We will be right back with Miss Liberty. She's dropping some knowledge on you guys. Drop some knowledge on me, man. Yeah.
The walking tree is said to change its entire location in pursuit of sunlight. Where could reinvention take your business? Accenture. Let there be change.
That way.
We're close. Let's go.
With Nissan, fun has no limits.
Hey, it's Jared. Let me show you how I created my dorm room vibe for less with Amazon. I have tons of different clothes. I have some pajama pants, more pajama pants. People say I have too much. I don't really listen to people. I love to journal. I got my gratitude journal, I got my mantra journal, and I got my 5-minute journal. And oh, I got a package from Amazon. Let's see what we got for today. This is perfect. This is my journal that I journal about journaling. Dear Diary, I wish I had more PJs.
Okay, we are back with Rasheeda Liberty, sports agent, and she does an excellent job. The one thing I had appreciated about you, Rasheeda, is the fact when you told me the story after what happened to Davis in the HBCU Legacy Bowl, how you really took care of him. And you were there every step of the way through his rehabilitation. And now he's going to be playing this spring with the Houston Roughnecks here in H-Town. So I'll get a chance to see Mr. Richard all the time now. But he's a fine young man. And I spoke to a couple of media guys, and they talked about how well prepared he was when he was doing his NFL Network interviews. And you spoke about how you were like, oh man, you get involved with the training and development there. How soon does that start? Is that immediate with your representation, or is it right before the draft, or how does that work?
They go through, it's pretty immediate. So one of the first things we do is an intake call with them, which is about 120 questions with the agency. And that goes through a lot of different dynamics to help us to be able to develop what we call marketing or player profile. From there, usually through that interview process, you understand more of how they answer the questions. And so we do start ramping up their interviewing soon as they do their training. So as their training starts in January, their interview prep is also started during that process. They're usually tired, but they have to do it because what we're doing during that January timeframe is we're getting them several interviews and ways to get in front of the media. So we're contacting several media outlets to put them in front. So with Davis specifically, we knew we wanted an ESPN article. We knew we wanted Sports Illustrated. We knew we wanted to feature him on NFL Network at least 3-4 times before the draft. So there's a media strategy developed for that player. And so they have to be ready. And we practice with Hometown. We practice with small newspapers, school newspapers, but it gradually gets them ready so that when they're ready to take that platform in March, April, when it's the most critical, they're able to be successful. And then we prep them for top 30 interviews as well when they travel the country to visit NFL teams.
Yeah, he had a great interview with myself and Ralph Cooper on the radio show as well. A lot of people called in and said how very impressed they were of him. Last question, Kim.
Hi, Rasheeda, I wanted to ask you something. I cover the league and in particular the Houston Texans on a daily basis. And I remember in 2019 when they drafted Titus Howard in the first round out of Alabama State, and being in the media room that night and hearing some of my colleagues from major news organizations ask, well, what's the swag? And I was like, seriously? But we get a chance every year to talk to the executive director of player personnel. And I'm always asking him, you know, what's your process for looking at players at HBCUs? And I'm wondering, does it make a difference when you find a team that has a history or has drafted or been at least open to HBCU players, that those are opportunities that you build even, I don't want to say better because I'm sure you want to have relationships with all the teams, but does that help? You know, a team is at least.
It helps. I have called out a couple teams personally to their player personnel and just said, you know, what makes him different than the next guy is because he went here, or vice versa. Here's his results up against the next guy. So we're negotiating a lot of those discussions, to be honest, well before draft time. Like it's usually around bowl time. I do look sometimes to entities that draft or that have favored or put undrafted free agents in rotation on a roster. But what I realize is it's not necessarily the front office that has made that happen. A lot of times it's the area and the national and the Blesto scout who made those things happen. So I tend to follow the Blesto scouts or the NFS, NFL. I follow those scouts to see what teams they are now with, because they have a history of going into those schools and spending more time and dedicating the right space for that talent. And I also favor teams that do show up for the HBCU Legacy Bowl.
Right.
Definitely.
And not just with the area scout, with their top brass.
Yeah.
Look, Rasheeda, we have to get you back on so we can have a longer chat, because I know you got a lot to say, but it's some great educational information that you just dropped on us. Tell everybody how they can be able to find you.
Yeah, you can follow me at Lady Lib 1922, and that's an LIB as in boy 1922. Also, you can reach me at Rasheeda at ladylib.com, but Twitter, Instagram, and we have Facebook. We don't utilize it that much, but Instagram and Twitter are kind of, or should I say X, are our main platforms to follow us, and our website, ladylib.com.
All right. Excellent. That's Miss Rasheeda Liberty. Thank you so much, Rasheeda.
All right. Appreciate you.
All right.
Thank you.
Man, that's a great information, guys.
I was just following her.
Me too.
Go ahead and try to follow
Me
her.
three.
All right. Me four? No. But it's important. A lot of parents, especially if you have a junior star or a senior star, and you don't know how to really get operated and get connected, reach out to Rasheeda, see what she can be able to do, give you any advice, as this whole process can be overwhelming. So let's go into our quick break, and we're going to go and have a listen to the chat that you, Ray, and Wale had with Coach Robert Jones. Okay, we'll be back in 2 and 2.
The walking tree is said to change its entire location in pursuit of sunlight. Where could reinvention take your business? Accenture. Let there be change.
That way.
We're close. Let's go.
With Nissan, fun has no limits.
All right, you with the urban sports scene, Ray Rogers, Wole Kenzo, now part of Black Sports Insiders, and we are joined by a special guest who is no stranger to our show. He's a great friend of the show, actually. Norfolk State men's basketball head coach Robert Jones. Thanks for your time, as always, Coach.
What's up, fellas? How y'all?
Good, man. Good.
All is well. So, you know how we do. Before we get into the serious stuff, we like to ask some fun questions, and I want to just begin with, are you like the Jake Shuttlesworth type of parent, or are you like, I guess, LeVar Ball? Because you now are like the second best basketball player in your family, I guess. With your son Justin on the come up, but maybe you still got a better Jay. How's that situation looking like now in the house? Is it a rivalry yet?
Oh, when after I ice my knee, it's not a rivalry. I'm still the best basketball player in the house. If I don't ice my knee, then he might get me. You know what I mean? But no, I mean, as far as like parenting, what's been working for me is that I never like forced him to play basketball.
Mm.
You know, so I always said that I wanted him to play when when he wanted to. You know, now sometimes in hindsight, do I contradict myself every now and then? Yeah, probably, because like I wish that I did force him a little bit more, because like he is on a good path. With what he's doing, you know, he's a junior. He got some college offers. We got more offers than I had at that point in my life. So I was like, man, maybe if I would have forced him like maybe 2 years older, because he didn't really start playing till he was like 9.5 years old, almost 10 years old. So it's like maybe if I'd have forced him to play like when he was like 7 or something like that, you know, maybe things would be different. But hey, everybody runs their own race, everybody got their own path, and he's on a solid path for what he's on, and you know, I wish him continued success.
That always goes a certain way. Like my nephew plays, he hoops now. He's like 6. He's been hooping since 5. Okay. So it's always tricky. You know what I mean? I feel like at the end of the day, I feel like certain kids, like you can try to train them as early as possible, but sometimes I feel like 10's a good time. You know what I mean? Or 11's a good time. I think people overthink that whole process of, all right, let's get them early, and then eventually they'll be like Kyrie Irving at age like 13 or something like that. People are like, don't get me started on all that. But yeah, people are wild.
The thing with basketball, man, is that basketball is a sport that you can kind of catch up quickly.
Exactly.
Because like you can play basketball or get better by yourself. You know, you could go get a hoop, you know, at a park and just shoot all day, and eventually your jumper is going to be better. You know, so you can catch up to a certain extent. But I do think that game experience is something that sometimes you might lack, because you know every day is like, the older you start, it's like people have more game experience on you, you know. But as far as skill, you could catch up with skill relatively quickly in basketball.
Yeah, totally agree. So has he beat you 1-on-1 yet?
Yeah. He'll probably be happy to hear me say that too. But he got me. He got me a few times. I ain't gonna lie. He got me a few times. One time I told him, I was like, "Damn, you're a little faster than I thought you were." Like, you know, he's like, maybe I get older, you know. So, but yeah. So he got me though. He got me.
Cool.
Yeah, see, that's why I asked, because I seen the J online. I was like, I don't know what type of game coach brings to the table. You look like a Barkley type, but you know, he got the shooting guard, just the form and it all. I'm like, yeah, he's on his way. So yeah, I'm excited.
He can shoot, man. That's the one thing I tell him, that, you know, in this modern day game, is that if you can't shoot, man, you're not worth nothing really out here, man. It's like shooting is almost better than be able to handle the ball, because you're gonna find somebody to handle the ball, but you can't find a lot of guys who could knock down an open catch and shoot. So if you can find those guys, you could play anywhere in the world if you can shoot. You know what I mean? So you know, we talk about shooting a lot. So
that's cool. So my second question, and we'll get into the serious stuff, is if you could tell 18-year-old Robert Jones that he was going to be in the Norfolk State Athletics Hall of Fame, what would 18-year-old Robert Jones have responded with?
For what? Or what would be in there for? It was like that would have been the answer, because you know, I had no desire to be no basketball coach, man. I had no desire to do that. That wasn't like the furthest from my radar. You know, even like I hear like little kids, like even like my sister coaches have like sons, and like you'll see them actually drawing on the chalkboard plays and stuff. So you can already see like kind of like coaching is in the back of their mind already as a young kids, even though of course they want to play, but it's in the back of their mind somewhere. For me, coaching was never in the back of my mind, man. I'm like, man, I'm gonna play so I can play no more, and after that we'll go get a job somewhere else doing like something. So to be able to be in a Hall of Fame, one as a player, two as a coach, and actually that was a coach from that 2012 team. So I was really an associate head coach on that. So it was like the Hall of Fame committee there, they was joking with me, was like, yo, we'll see you in another couple years for like the head coaching Hall of Fame, so like to potentially go into the Hall of Fame 2 times at one place and then 1 time as a player, then maybe the MEAC Hall of Fame one day, stuff like that is like, man, I ain't never think about none of that stuff, man. I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you and say, no, I didn't see none of that coming. So it's like humbling to be honored as one of the best of one of the best of the best. So that's humbling. That's an honor that I don't take for granted, and it's a great honor to have.
That resume, you just made that resume seem thorough. Jeez, you saw the MEAC Hall of Fame as an assistant and head coach, Brian. You doing it?
That's why I kind of made that post the other day. Is that like really when you're in the moment, just like there's a lot of accomplishments that I guess I have that I don't even think about. Like people on my SID would tell me, well, you have this, many compared to the rest of the league or rest of the coaches in the world or whatever. I'm like, really? You don't, what I mean? Like, because it's like you don't think about it. You just trying to be the best you can be. And I guess if you keep trying to do that, then those accolades will come with the work that you put in to try to be the best you can be. Like I don't go out and set out to try to be coach of the year. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not like my thing. Like I set out to be like the best possible team, and usually the best possible team gets a lot of different awards, whether it's player of the year, coach of the year, this, that, and third. So that's usually my goal every year, man. So that's me being in the moment. But then when you step back, you're gonna look at, like you said, like, well, damn, maybe my resume isn't that bad, but you don't really think about it when you're in the moment, because you can't. Because I think the moment you think about it is the moment your resume goes down, in my opinion.
All right, Ray, that was a great interview, and we're going to have more of the interview on Black Sports Insider's YouTube channel in the next few days. But Ray, talk about Coach Jones. This offseason was kind of active. His name was passed around some circles as a possible candidate for a D1 job up north. Talk about what's happening with him and why did he choose to stay?
Well, he said whenever you're successful, there's going to be interest. That's pretty much what he told us, and it's kind of like what Coach Prime said. You often want to find yourself elevating, and he, of course, was fielded offers. But I think one thing that may have swayed him was he told us a story about how he's just in a grocery store, and the lady said, "You can't go nowhere, Coach." I don't even know who this woman is, but he realized that Norfolk State is basically home, and I think that played a huge role, the alumni support and all the success he's had. He's had winning teams. Even when they haven't necessarily won the MEAC tournament, they've had winning records. They beat other mid-major programs, and that's what's huge about him is he knows he's developing a great mid-major program. He loves the HBCU element, but his focus is on, I want to be a great mid-major coach, and I want the Norfolk State men's basketball program to be a great mid-major basketball program, not just an HBCU basketball program. And he's accomplished that. They won the College Insider Tournament this past season. So even though they didn't win the MEAC tournament and didn't qualify for the NCAA tournament, they still qualified for the postseason. And they did well. He's had many players become successful and go on to have pro careers, including Joe Bryant Jr., who was 2-time MEAC Player of the Year, Chris Bankston, and Dana Tate Jr. The list goes on. He's coached a lot of great young men. Again, he didn't expect that he was going to be inducted into the Norfolk State Athletics Hall of Fame, which just happened. So Norfolk State is home for him, I believe. I'm not saying he's not going to field offers in the future, but I'm saying as of right now, I think that's where he wants to be. And we mentioned his son, too, who is cementing his legacy in high school hoops down in Virginia.
Now, when it comes to anybody in the media challenging him, who would that be?
Say that for me one time. I'm sorry.
Who would challenge Norfolk State in the MEAC? Is it going to be Howard again?
Oh, most definitely. Howard is bringing back the core of the group that went to back-to-back NCAA tournaments. So that's a rivalry. Howard has also eliminated Norfolk State the last 2 seasons. Norfolk State swept Howard in the regular season last year, but when it came to the tournament, Howard was up to the challenge. They had some veteran players like Bryce Harris and Marcus Dockery on that team, and they still have those 2 guys who now have 2 NCAA appearances under their belt, NCAA tournament appearances under their belt, and they're definitely the team to beat in the MEAC this season. I think Robert Jones is always going to have his squad right there, recruits well, and he's one of the best teachers in the league.
Yeah, yes, he is. Good, talented head coach, and he's done a great job developing young men. All right, let's turn our attention back into sports. We just got word that Shannon Sharpe won his appeal, or the appeals was denied by Brett Favre against Shannon Sharpe for defamation.
Okay.
And that case there was taken by the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. And I think right now, when you look at what's happening with that situation, Kim, Brett Favre, could he find more difficulties later down the line?
I don't know. I mean, this has been going on for a minute, and so I'd be just kind of, put my finger in the air and see which way the wind blows. I have no idea what's going to happen. There's so many layers to that thing, that the Brett Favre case, and so I don't know. That's my honest answer. We will have to wait and see, but I don't know what he's guilty of, but he did something, so. It's just a matter of what they decided to hold him, to make him be accountable for.
Yeah, definitely. Aja Wilson, Keisha, what's your thoughts about that dynamic young lady? MVP in the future, of course, right?
My favorite go-to is the future is female, and what we're seeing, sold out games for WNBA. I remember when I first started watching the WNBA, and you could not pay anybody to watch the Atlanta Dream here in Atlanta. The tickets were floor seats were probably like $40. Now you're not going to get in the building for $40. So, and it's going to be sold out. So when you look at somebody like Aja, it's just amazing to see, this thing come full circle. And it don't help that it's a sister. I'm excited about that. So, it is. It's just good to see where she's going. It's good to see that side of it. But I'm very excited for, women's basketball.
Yeah. Over 1,000 regular season points. First time ever in WNBA history that a player has achieved that mark. But could she be the first $1 million player for the WNBA? Any thoughts?
I think I can take her. No, I'm sure.
You mean from a salary standpoint?
Yeah. I was looking at a article on Front Office Sports. They believe that she could hit that mark.
She could. I oftentimes do shows around the country. People want to talk about the disparity in men and women's basketball pay, and I get it, but it comes down to the TV package. And I always ask people that want to complain about it, have you bought a jersey? Have you been to a game? Because the money has to come from somewhere. And, I was on the Houston Comets broadcast team in the early days. They won those first 4 championships. And the league back then, it started, and those games were sold out. They had some of the highest rated television viewing audiences still from back then till today. But the teams were a part of the NBA teams, and they were more importantly a part of the marketing and TV packages, which is really everything. So it's taken all this time. Once the team split, right, the men's teams wasn't mandated that they had to own the women's team, for the women's team to come back and start to build itself as a league independently. And now they're getting some of that support. The TV package makes a difference. So people will watch you if you're on TV, and that's how you build fans. So I'm glad to see it, as Keisha said, kind of come full circle, because it's a great product. and so hopefully with the next television package and some of those things they're talking about in terms of sponsorship, she will be the first $1 million woman, but she won't be the last.
Yeah. Look, like you said, you are part of the broadcast, but as far as a fan looking inside, what the Comets were able to do those first 4 years here in the city of Houston was tremendous. And there hasn't been anything like that since. But could the Aces be the ones to challenge that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why not. You know, I mean, they're really good.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Deion Sanders, he's been getting more and more difficulty handling the media. Coach Prime has usually been very skilled and astute in handling how the media presents the narrative coming out of whichever program he's leading. Ray, do you think the media has been unfair to Coach Prime at this stage of his career?
Oh, not at all. He always describes himself. He uses all types of words like braggadocious. I've always been this and that. So it comes with the territory. I think also the position he's in, whether we like it or not, he's in a position to be able to pick and choose kind of who he wants to talk to and who he's going to allow to cover his program. But unfortunately, I think just the type of attention that they've warranted, it's come with it. I'm not saying it's all fair, because some of it isn't. He's been very successful. What he did at Jackson State is, I mean, it was huge, not just for Jackson, but for all HBCUs. So I respect that. He's revived Colorado football just by showing up. Their games are packed. Even when they were losing last season, their games are still packed. He has 2 of the top 5 players in the country. So yeah, you're going to get a lot of attention. It's not always going to be the most positive attention, but overall, I think he should still be pleased as to what he's been able to do for that program and also for his family. It's great to see him coach his sons. So I think he's being treated fairly for the most part. There's some guys out there, they're looking for him, but he should be used to it. As a player, same thing. He faced a lot of criticism when he played baseball. He shouldn't be doing this, but he never let that deter him. And that's what makes Coach Prime who he is. I don't always agree with everything he says. Let me just put that out there right now.
Yeah.
I don't like how he left Jackson either. I'm still mad about it, but I'm just saying that it's expected. And I think he understands that, whether it's fair or not.
Yeah.
Hey, you can't call yourself Coach Prime and then somehow have an issue with the attention. You know what I mean? You can't have it both ways. And
it comes with the territory.
There's a lot of great things that Deion Sanders has done and will do. And some of the other things that happen, he brings on himself. And so, listen, I've dealt with him over the years, and he can be that prime guy. And so, have they been fair? Yeah, I think it's been fair. You know, I'm with, Ray. I didn't like the way he left Jackson State. I didn't think he needed to stay there forever. But, don't try to burn it down on your way out, right? Because you knew what Jackson was when you got there. And were it not for Jackson State, there would not be a Colorado. So, just everybody be happy and just move along.
And I'm going to be the last to comment on that. I always say Jackson was doing fine before he got there. It wasn't bothering anybody.
They still open, Keisha?
Jackson State?
Yeah, they still open.
Oh, don't do that.
That's what I'm saying. They still
open.
Our
right. Exactly. They were surviving before. They're gonna survive after. And I think that's one of the things. It's just the way and the manner that he left. Like you said, Kim, we don't expect you to stay there forever. But I think it was just the manner in which, and the funny thing is he and I had a great relationship in media. We really used to cut up on media calls, but it was, I didn't, I was one of those people in denial. I was like, he's not leaving until he left.
He tried to tell y'all, I did speak to University of Colorado. He said that. He was letting you guys know. All right. And the Florida A&M has finally found a replacement for Tiffany Dawn Saints as Vice President and Director of Athletics that will go to an alum. And her name is Angela Suggs, and she has a quite impressive resume. And we'll talk a little bit about that next show. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. We will have a rebroadcast of this show so you can hear more from Miss Liberty talking about how to go about the selection process of finding a sports agent for your son, or even some ladies, if you want to go to the WNBA, you may need this as well. I'm Kyle T. Mosley of Black Sports Insiders. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Take care.